I am so excited to say that we've officially landed our first podcast sponsor. And before I even say who it is, I want to thank you guys for listening to the show and making it a podcast worthy of sponsorship. This means a lot to me. Filling the first ever sponsorship gap was a big decision. And I'm excited to say that the guys I'm wearing right here on my head and right here on my eyes are the brand sponsoring the show. So this podcast is now brought to you by Dream Recovery. They have incredible products for you to get the most out of your sleep. And I've been using the products for well over a year now, like the blue light blocking glasses, the hat, which is just an added bonus and looks good with an outfit. But two of my favorites are their performance sleep mask, and most importantly, the thing you hear me talk about all the time, mouth tape. I started taping my mouth shut when I was going to sleep at night, and I have noticed a huge difference in my recovery on both my whoop and just in what I feel in my day-to-day life. They also sell performance nasal strips for exercise and sleep, which unfortunately I'm currently out of because I used all of them. So if you want to save some money at checkout at the Dream Recovery website, you can use code HU to save 15% on your first order. That's dreamrecovery.com. There will also be a link in the description so you can go check it out and get more out of your sleep. Welcome back to another episode of the HigherUp podcast. I'm your host, Michael Smoke, and today we're joined by a guest in his home. He is a former NFL athlete, current CEO and founder of Dream Sports and Recovery, an avid sauna fanatic, and a supporter of Bring Your Tractor to School Day. Mr. Todd Anderson, thanks for being here, man.
That's probably the best intro I ever got.
Thank you for having me into your home and welcoming me in and having me on your podcast. We did Beat the Heat, which that's what's on his shirt right now.
Yep.
Such a cool concept for a show, dude.
It's been fun. It's something I would do I would do it forever just for the fun of it. And I also feel like you become fast friends in the sauna. Like you get to know someone in 20 minutes more than you would. And if you get drinks, go to the bar and get drinks 5 times before you get to know someone in 20 minutes in the sauna, the same amount.
Yeah, I mean, there's something about, we talked about it yesterday, but that pain breaks down a conversational barrier with people. It just makes everything very human. And you connect easily.
It's like forced vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like you're suffering. It gets to, I think everyone kind of tests it out for 15 minutes, but after that, it's like you're vulnerable.
Dude, when that 25-minute mark came up, I thought I was going to meet Jesus earlier than I intended originally.
I didn't think you were doing too bad, but then I could tell like at 25, I was like, oh, he's hurting more than I thought.
Yeah.
And your heart rate was screaming.
I was in zone 5 at one point.
Yeah.
Which for those of you who don't know, that's like equivalent to me running my max effort PR mile.
Yeah.
That's really high.
Just sitting.
Yeah. Yeah. But not a spoiler alert because the show will be out, I think, by the time this comes out. But I did beat the heat, got the golden ladle. I'm not going to let that slide. I'm very proud of that achievement.
Only about half the people make it.
Really?
So, yeah.
You're interviewing some soft people, man.
Yeah. The shortest ever is 17 minutes. So
I'm glad I beat 17.
I always tell people that because no one wants to be if you're in the middle, it's fine.
Yeah.
But no one wants to be the bottom.
Yeah. No, it's not soft if you don't make it through. The sauna gets progressively hotter as the interview goes on. And every time you get a question wrong, the lovely Todd here throws water on the hot rocks, and it turns into an inferno for a few minutes. It's like a punishment.
Yeah, it's rough.
For getting trivia about yourself wrong. But man, we've covered a lot of things since I've been here, and I've learned a lot about you in a short time. You're so warm and open and hospitable. And I learned a little bit about your background and your story, and if it's not abundantly clear, you obviously have a pretty polished, you and your wife both have pretty remarkable athletic backgrounds. And so I'm curious, your backstory, the early days of fulfilling the dream of being a Michigan State football player, and some of the adversity you dealt with battling injuries those first 3 years. Truthfully, I'm curious, how did you manage 3 years of feeling like it wasn't ever going to happen exactly how you wanted, and then you come into senior year and you crush?
Yeah, it was tough because, I always had a little chip on my shoulder being a walk-on and was always doubted. And so it got really hard when I knew I was like good enough to play. When I got hurt like the third time, it was like, I swear I can do this, but nobody believed it, especially like my hometown. And so it was a grind, but at the same time, I think like when you're young, first, you're super resilient. I just think that you put your head down and you don't think as big picture sometimes. I think that was a piece of it. But my family was amazing. And then the other thing is, I think, like anything in life, like when you care about something so much, you're willing to go to some crazy lengths. So there was never a moment of like, this isn't worth it. My only negative thoughts were like, maybe I can't do it. Like my body physically, like this isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But it was always worth it. And I think that sometimes like that's the piece that people don't understand. Like the reason it's hard to get through certain things is because you don't care enough. You're not that bought in. It's like certain jobs. Like, yeah, no kidding, it's hard. It's hard to show up when you're not passionate about what you're doing. So I think in some sense it was hard. Like similar, my wife would say the same thing. Like the practices, the stuff she went through to go to the Olympics on paper is hard, but when you're willing to give up anything to achieve something, it doesn't really feel that hard. And so I think it was just something that I cared about more than anything else in the world, and just kept pushing through.
That's a great line. Of course it's really hard if you don't care enough.
Yeah, everything. It's hard to, it's like if you ever have a long night and you have to get up and go get food, it's hard. So it's just like, it's all relative.
At high level, what happened the first 3 years that prevented you from playing?
So the first year I was just not good. Redshirted. The second year I tore my quad, which is pretty gnarly.
That's a gnarly injury. Whoa, you never had it reattached?
They couldn't. It's mid-substance.
What does that mean?
So like, with anchors and sutures, you can only really attach the attachment points, like the tendon, the coarse parts. So they can reattach it to the patellar tendon. That's normally what happens. But it ripped right in the middle of the muscle. And so like those fibers, you can't really like sew them back together in a way that they'll reconnect and be able to fire effectively. They were like, it might make it worse, honestly. So just let it heal, and I mean, I can pretty much do everything.
So for those who might just be listening in the car or something, Todd has what looks like half of a grapefruit in the upper half of his quad, where the quad tendon is effectively rolled up. Right?
Yeah, it's basically like a rubber band.
Does it hurt?
Not very often, no.
Like if you touch it, is it sensitive?
No, it's like a muscle. It's like a balled up. It's similar, if you ever see someone tear their bicep.
Yeah, it rolls up the same way.
Exact thing. So it flexes like a muscle. It's just balled up.
And can you squat and do everything?
Yeah, the strength loss usually, honestly, for a tear, like once it kind of like heals in, is only like 10 to 15%. I rehabbed it really hard, and I don't think there's a big difference. Even like, Achilles tendons, some people don't repair them. Some countries don't even, they'll just let it scar in. So the body adapts. It's pretty wild.
It's incredible, actually, to see that, and how I never would have guessed if you hadn't showed me.
Yeah, no.
So that was sophomore year, junior year.
Junior year, I broke a piece of cartilage off my femur like a week before the first game, out the whole season. And then finally, senior year, it was kind of a miracle thing. I got hit with my leg straight in spring ball before my junior year, and my knee just felt horrible. And all of a sudden, it popped, and it popped out this chunk of cartilage that got lodged, which I only found that out 10 years later because I had to have it removed. But it settled in a place that didn't bother my knee. And by the grace of God, I was healthy all of a sudden.
Wow.
Like that morning, I was walking with Kirk Cousins, our quarterback, and I looked at him, and I'm like, I think I might be done. Like I can barely run. It's hard enough to play when you're healthy. And so then that practice, I got hit, and it was like crack, and I was like, I thought it was bad. Yeah, it was a crazy feeling. And then I woke up the next day like pain free.
But before that, you were basically wearing a brace to force your knee in a certain
it would push my knee like from being in valgus. So it would push from the inside out to try to alleviate the pressure, like where that cartilage piece was, like where the chunk was missing. But it wasn't working because it turns out it was something, just a piece of that bone that came out was just lodged. And so it was actually like making it worse. And so then it was good after that.
What a miracle, dude.
Yeah.
And then you step into senior year and you finally get your snaps, and you, for all intents and purposes, went off.
So my senior year, the way, like, that kind of all plays a piece in the story. I always felt like I had to like get every ounce of ability out of myself, and like my senior year, I just got myself to be so big and strong. I was so confident playing that I think I kind of just let it rip. And, I never was like doubting myself. And I think the weight room and the off the field stuff like gave me confidence. And I actually think that's like where all this started, was just like, I'd be, looking up research articles, like finding anything I can. I'm like, I'm already up against it here. I need every ounce I can get out of myself. And like, even like, I remember 2010, like, how everyone's like, don't do ice bath after workouts, muscle or protein synthesis, inflammation, stuff like that. That study came out in 2010 when I was in college. I remember reading the original study, and people are acting like it's this groundbreaking thing.
People are posting it on Instagram right now.
Yeah, I'm like, this is 15 years later. Yeah. And so I just was always like kind of a nerd in that sense of wanting to get the most out of my body. And then it turned into, okay, how can I help others? So my parents are teachers, so I feel like it was always instilled in me that, helping others is a big part of the purpose of life. And so I think that was kind of how I was wired. And then I thought that was through strength and conditioning, but the more I dove into it, it was like, you want to change someone's performance of their life, like sleep needs to be there. Like sleep is the foundation. And I think, I'd make the argument, we talk about like, say it's like strength training, cardiovascular training, nutrition, hydration. You could do all these buckets. Like I would argue like sleep is almost the foundation those are built on, because it's really the only one that has like a profound impact on the others, like a massive shift in your body's ability to maintain balance. And so, it's like everyone has a coach that said like you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And I think sleep is truly that. Like when you're sleeping well, it's exponentially helping you in your life, or it's like amplifying the good things you're doing. And if you're not sleeping well, it's pulling away from all the positive things you're doing, or amplifying the bad things.
Yeah, and it's such a critical pillar of health. A lot would say the most critical pillar of health. And in today's society, it is always the first bucket that everybody pulls from when life gets crazy.
Yeah, it's the afterthought. It's the like leftovers, like the leftovers of the day. Most people sleep what's the time that's left over, as opposed to like scheduling that in first. Mm-hmm. Because the other thing is too, with like urgency, the way our brain works, if you schedule it that way, that's what you get. You end up getting the leftovers. But if you schedule it and prioritize it, you end up making everything else work. Like you're not going 16, 17 hours straight. Like you got to look in the mirror and be honest with yourself. Maybe somebody is, but 99% of people, they can make it happen.
So you went from, obviously you've been in a state of high performance for most of your life. D1 college athlete. You did a year in the NFL at the absolute highest level. And then you step away from the NFL. You get into the training space, becoming a personal trainer. But then there's this gap. I think you said you met someone, a sleep specialist, who really turned you on to all this. Yeah,
so I wanted to be a college strength conditioning coach, started doing personal training. And I went back to the place I trained for Pro Day and worked with a bunch of like athletes. Then went the personal training route because we moved to Miami for Katie's swimming. And then I got to spend time with this doctor, Dr. Jennifer Martin out of UCLA, and it was eye-opening. It was probably 10 years ago, and I had never heard anyone speak on sleep like she was. I never heard anybody tie things together and piece, the relevance to the actual practical application of what's going on in the body. And it was just sent me down this rabbit hole. So eventually just ended up taking any course I could other than, going down the clinical route, getting my master's now. But
in what?
Psychology. My thought is, eventually like it'd be cool to do like a PhD in sleep psychology, but it's really more about behavior change than anything. Like the science of sleep is evolving rapidly, and that's going to be forever changing. And so, it's really what we do with that information. Like when I go talk to college football teams or any, pro athletes or whatever, the goal is like, how do I take the science and what's happening in the body and make it relevant and get them excited about buying in? And so I think that behavior change component, that's really all that matters, right? Like the way the brain functions during sleep and the actual, physiology of it is irrelevant if you can't get somebody to change what they're doing. So that's kind of like my approach with it.
When you were learning from this say her name again, Doctor?
Jennifer Martin.
Jennifer Martin, were there things that you heard? I have statistics in my head that replay often about sleep that alarm me. Are there things that stick out to you that really shifted your paradigm of, wow, I am not making this a priority the way that I should?
I think some of the neurodegenerative stuff is frightening, but this is where it gets tough. I think we're at a very delicate time in this space, because I think the pendulum is swinging, right? Like it was like sleep when you're dead, right? Rise and grind. And now people are really starting to care about it. And I think the difference with sleep than the other pillars, like let's say fitness or anything in the fitness world, like that can be improved upon almost forever. Like you can continuously be getting better. It feels like you're never maxed out. Even aesthetics, people are always working on it. Sleep isn't like that, right? Like when you're sleeping well, you're sleeping the appropriate amount, you feel good, you have energy, you should not continue down this path to optimize your sleep forever. Like it's kind of a check the box type thing. And I think there's been this mentality in a lot of people in this space, probably some people listening right now, of this like forever optimization of sleep, thinking I can make my sleep better. And that's just not how it works. It's almost like, okay, you have the right quantity of sleep, you feel like you have good quality, you wake up with energy, move on, and then start stacking the other things in your life. And I think people have become fixated And so I think there's an approach it's really healthy and super useful for people, but there's also an approach of this hyperfixation to fix your sleep that can be pretty detrimental. Like you can create problems. And I think we're seeing that right now.
What did you call it? What's the term?
Orthosomniac. Like the obsession with fixing your sleep. Ortho, like from the Greek word, like, you know, an orthopedic surgeon, like the ortho piece is to fix. And so it's this like forever or never ending journey to fix your sleep. But, you know, like I said, if the quantity is there and you assess like the self-assessment of quality is there, like that's really all you're looking for. And I think people get in the nitty gritty of sleep cycles and REM sleep and deep sleep. What, you know, how much am I getting? One is the data is probably pretty accurate at best, and two, everyone's a little different. It's really not going to be the best use of your time to dive into that stuff. Like people are like, how much REM sleep should I get? How much deep sleep should I get? Like what's better? What's the best type of sleep? That's not even the right way to approach it. It's like each stage of sleep is useful in different ways, has different functions in the body. One's not better than the other. It's about this, you know, this nice progression of these cycles and this nice proportion of cycles, and just making sure your body has enough time to go through them, not, you know, trying to quantify everything.
Yeah, I'm not trying to maximize my REM. I'm trying to wake up feeling rested and restored.
Exactly. Let your body do its thing. Like have, you know, I compare it to like a coach and a player. Like you're not playing the game at night. That's not your role. And I think some people think that you're like the coach. You're going to set up the environment, set up your routine, like get the playbook ready, but let your body do its thing once you go to bed. Like you're not going to stress yourself into sleeping better. That will never happen.
So how do you get people, like when you give talks to college kids, for example, the worst sleepers in the world?
Yeah.
Everyone that demo is addicted. Not everyone. A lot of people in there that demo are addicted to their phones.
Yeah.
My demographic, some people your age even. Like it's such a problem in modern society, the way that we stay up too late. We hammer screen time right up until we close our eyes. So there's definitely multiple people listening that aren't sleeping more than 4, 5, 6 hours a night. So how do you get someone excited to go, I'm going to bed 2 hours earlier?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing is with sleep, whatever your goal is, right? So like football, for example, we just got back from University of Miami. Those guys are trying to make it to the NFL. Probably 75% of the team might have the ability to do that if they play well. And so they're like with sleep, it's unique where whatever you're trying to accomplish, whether it's a Nobel Prize or go to the NFL, there's data to support why you should prioritize it. Like it is something that's broadly helpful throughout the entire human body, whether cognitive function, physical function, reaction time, memory, whatever. And so I think it's really about like figuring out what someone is interested in, what they're trying to do, and piecing that data together and getting them fired up, right? If I went up there and talked to the team about their memory and cognitive function, they're going to fall asleep, and not when I want them to, while I'm talking. But if I go and talk about, you know, reaction time, like what I like to do is talk about reaction time and injury rates, and then piecing together throughout an entire game of all those different subconscious reactions. Like that's really what sleep affects, the things that are subconscious, not the stuff that's like feeling tired. It's things like injury, your body's ability to recognize where it is in space, proprioception. Like you can't out-tough that. Like you can out-tough being tired. You can't out-tough your body's ability to change your angle of your knee when you're cutting. And that's I think what people don't get. So it's like, you know, when you connect the goals to the data, people all of a sudden get fired up. And then the products help because like they get excited to use them. And a lot of times it's not about like the sleep mask I was talking to you about. It's not about the sleep mask. It's about what comes along with it. They're committing to sleep. They have this psychological trigger. They're not on their phone. Like there's a point where they have to commit to not being on their phone. So, you know, it's almost like a tool to get your foot in the door, but really it's like you're backing into a routine. And I think that's what's cool. Same with like the taping and all the stuff. Like a lot of times it's not even about anything to do with products. It's everything to do with getting someone motivated to back themselves into a nighttime routine that then everything falls in place.
Yeah, there's definitely some power, and I'm sure there's research to support, just like there's power in a morning routine, being we are diurnal creatures, the importance of morning light on the eyes for circadian rhythm and sleep. When we associate, I'm taping my mouth shut, I'm turning the lights low, I'm putting my sleep mask on my forehead, that has to have something to do with melatonin release, general winding down, adenosine buildup, being adenosine pressure releasing. There's definitely a psychological component to that routine.
Yeah, I think breath is probably like the most underrated thing in the fitness world right now, because I think, and it's a nature of the industry, I think it's like overwhelming for people. When you hear breath work, a lot of people kind of turn the other way.
It's a big term.
Yeah, and there's a million ways to do it. There's a ton of different philosophies, and it's kind of overwhelming for people. So even that, like with the tape, I think what's really happening is people they're forced to back into breath work, and they get to feel the positive benefits of doing it without even realizing it's happening. Same with some of the other products out there. So I think that, like, you know, breath being kind of the steering wheel to the nervous system, like that's a great place to start. And that's honestly bang for your buck, like one of the best places. Between breath and light, you know, like those two things can be pretty easy to limit and impactful. And I think, like with people on their phones too, you also have to meet people where they're at. I think that's another piece. And so for a college kid, telling them not to be on their phone, like that's unrealistic. As soon as you say that, they stop listening. But using something like blue light glasses or turning the lights down, like little subtle changes where, oh, that's not that big a deal. All of a sudden you start to make small changes that have big impacts. And so meeting someone where they're at is probably the most important piece, like not throwing too much at them. Understand, like, look, I know what you're going through. I know your lifestyle. I know the pressures of like your everyday. Let's limit the impact of some of these things, not tell you not to do it. Like that's what we used to have doctors be like, don't drink, don't do this. And
their ears shut off when they hear all this.
You know what's crazy though is when when people learn the why behind it, and they're educated in the why, like people want to feel good, they want to do well, they want to wake up with energy. And so I think sometimes people assume they don't want to be educated and they're gonna lose them through the education process. But I actually think it builds. I think it builds on their buy-in to the subject. And the more they can learn and the more background, like when I go in and talk to a team, I always start talking about, I go into sleep cycles, what each sleep cycle does, why, and like, because that kind of like tells the story of why it's important. And without the background, I'm just like launching facts at you at that point. It's just like a pop quiz, a reverse pop quiz.
Yeah, that meeting people where they're at applies to so many walks of life when I meet with my coaching clients. But I love the point you brought up about blue lights. I'm pointing off the screen.
Grab some.
I'm gonna grab some. These the deep amber ones? No, these are the lighter ones.
Yeah.
But I wore the deep. I was telling you, obviously I wear glasses. I have such bad eyesight that everything went kind of blurry.
Yeah.
When I put these on, but when I wore these, thank you for sending me these, by the way.
Yeah, man.
The deep ones, like the deep amber over
there.
Yeah, no,
they.
I KO'd. Like I could feel the difference because the blue light filtration is such a real thing. So it's a powerful example. I think people will hear, I can't get on my phone 2 hours before bed, I'm hopeless, I might as well just continue to look at my screen.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing I think with light that's kind of misunderstood is, like, if you look at the studies on blue light and light in general and screens, there's also a huge difference between 1 hour and 2 hours. Like it's not just a binary thing. Did I look at a screen? Yes or no? Like even cutting it in half to an hour, like you can only be on your phone for an hour. That's pretty digestible. You know what I mean? And so I think that understanding that, like 15 minutes makes a difference. Like that energy in your eyes is impactful, and it doesn't have to be a yes or no thing. It's like, what if you did an hour and then for the second hour you put some glasses on? That's going to have a substantial difference. So it's like little tweaks can go a long way. And I think people think it's like an all in or all out type thing.
So you went from learning all of this about sleep, diving into the rabbit hole of, like you said, certifications and becoming as competent as you could on it. Where was Dream born from that?
Yeah, so I mean, I did a lot of speaking to like corporations. When I lived in New York, there were so many companies there that would get brought in. I'd talk to like the New York Bar Association, which was, you want to talk about people that struggle with their sleep, lawyers. Dude, that lifestyle is wild, especially in the city.
Especially in New York. They do some crazy stuff to their bodies.
They were asking me questions, and I was like, I don't even know what to say. I'll never forget this. One lady was like, I drink like half a bottle of vodka and smoke cigarettes or a pack of cigarettes every single night. And I was like, I don't know. Just keep whatever. Just keep doing whatever you're doing.
I would have been very flustered if I got that question on stage.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, I didn't say much. I was like, we can talk about that more offline because it's crazy. But so I started doing speaking, and then, it kind of just naturally came about because I would get asked all the time about sleep masks and mouth tape, nasal strips, all this stuff. Like, what should I get? Pillowcases. And I was always like, oh, like this brand's pretty good. But the other thing with the brands, like most of the brands out there at the time were like, kind of like on the beauty side of things, feminine. And it was like, why is there nothing for like a high performer, somebody that is just trying to accomplish goals, that's meant for someone that's trying to get up and make the most out of their day? It just didn't feel like that existed. And I think that makes a big difference, like the community aspect and the messaging, like and attracting the people. And it's almost like, shifting that rise and grind mentality, like killing that rise and grind mentality. And it's like, I think, our goal is to prioritize having I think people think about, if I don't sleep, I'll have the most hours. I'll have 2 more hours than everyone else I'm competing against. But it's really about the best hours. Like I'll take 16 great hours over 19 where I'm dragging any day of the week. And so shifting that culture, there was nothing out there like that. So it was kind of a natural fit just to start making stuff.
So you were getting asked all the time, what's the best sleep mask?
Yeah.
What should I use for mouth taping?
Yeah, and I was taping. I've been mouth taping for, I don't know, 6, 7 years. And so it was like, I never felt awesome about recommending something, especially to like a football player, like silk sleep mask. Like it was tough to find, especially 5, 6 years ago. So yeah. And I love it. Like there's nothing. I love going to talk to a group and getting the feedback and like there's amazing stories about people fixing turning their life around because of their sleep. And so, if we, making products to support that, it's just been really cool. So it's been an incredible combination of like business and purpose. And I think that's pretty rare. Yeah, I think at least for me growing up, it kind of always felt like you had to make this decision of like, you want a purpose driven life or do you want to make a lot of money? And not to say that we're making a lot of money, but like, I think both can happen. And I think when you're genuine about that, people want to support you.
Yeah. And I think people like you give people hope that you can do both. You can feel like you're making a real difference and not just like we were talking about at dinner last night with Ryan. He's talking about his old job. It's a great paycheck, but it was like, what am I really doing for the world, for others?
Yeah.
And you get to marry the two. And while it is rare, and it's a blessing to get to do what you do or what I do, to be paid for what we actually wake up and think about all the time anyway, and would do for free. Rare doesn't mean impossible. And I think a lot of people need to hear your story and what you've built because that becomes possible in their mind. Yeah,
I think it's hard. It's hard too. We were talking about this too, is like the better you do, the harder it is, because like the financial side is, that's a part of life and supporting your family. And so sometimes I think you get out of school and you're just like running as fast as you can to try to make as much money as you can. But then you get yourself in this position lifestyle where you maybe hadn't thought about like if you could wake up and do anything, what would you do? Like what does drive you? You don't actually like do a deep dive in that. And then all of a sudden, like you said, that's like the golden handcuffs. It makes it even harder. I think it feels even worse because I've been, in situations where not to that extreme, but it's kind of felt like that. And, making like I think having that holding that mirror up earlier in your life, like kind of like what you did, I think is super powerful. What gets really hard is when you're 15, 20 years into something and you want to make a change, and it a lot of times your lifestyle isn't set up to make a big jump like that.
Yeah. The longer you stay on the wrong train, the more expensive it is to get off.
No doubt.
And this is not us telling everybody to quit their jobs right now and have some sort of quarter life crisis, but most people haven't. I gave a talk we had an event in Atlanta, and I begged the question, when was the last time you really sat down for 20 or 30 minutes with your own thoughts, no interruptions, no phones, you in a notepad, and you just wrote down what you want? What do I want out of my life? Like you just said, if you could wake up and do anything, feel any way, treat anybody any way, have any person or type of friend in your life, have any job, what would that be like? A lot of people don't do that because they graduate and it's like, there's this societal pressure to enter the rat race. Go. And then they look up and they're like what I saw in so many of my colleagues in my last job. It just felt like they were stuck in a job that paid really well, but it just like when I looked at them, I was like, you don't seem alive. You don't seem on fire. And that's sad.
And that's a lot of people, and it's hard. It's such a tough spot to be in. And I also think it's hard to like, you graduate school and you're like, okay, I need to make money. And without like a system to thrive in, it seems super overwhelming and almost impossible. So I do think it's really valuable to learn some systems, understand like the back end of business side before you just like go after it, because it's like you feel like you're an alien when you first get out of school, you know? So it's like, I don't even understand anything anybody's talking about. What's so cool nowadays is you can learn so much so fast about anything. And that's never been the case. So I think on the business side, like we're seeing, businesses are being started at an insane pace.
And more of them probably, if I had to guess, proportionally than ever are doing really well because of the power of social media and the internet.
The only thing that's funny, like I feel like when people are like, okay, I want to do social media, and then the natural progression is like launch a company.
Yeah.
And it's like, what's funny to me is, you know, what it takes to run a company and the amount of resources. And if you look at like the bottom line margins, a lot of times it's the same as like you would get paid if you were just an affiliate for the company. Yeah. And so like, I don't think some people, I think it's like sometimes it's overly glorified because everything that goes into it. And so, you know, I just think it's funny to watch right now, like this whole founder movement of like social media people transitioning. And sometimes it's probably not exactly what people expect.
What is the biggest, you guys are growing fast. Since I met you last year at Running Man.
Yeah, it's been crazy.
You've blown up.
Yeah.
What's been the biggest challenge with that right now?
I mean, honestly, like manufacturing, like keeping up, like it's been a struggle since we launched the mouth tape, like to keep up with demands. You know, when you're growing fast, it's really hard to like project 6 months to a year out. And with the volume we're doing now, like that's kind of how you have to do it. And so, and we don't really have much experience with that. And nobody, you know, every situation is different. So even if you brought somebody in with the most experience in the world, it could be completely wrong. And so, you know, I think manufacturing's been really tough. And consistency, I think, like, especially like our nasal strips, we worked on those for 17 months.
Oh, we were supposed to put those on before the show started. We totally folded.
That's okay. But we worked on it for 17 months, named Second Wind. But like the delicacy of, one, just getting the patents filed, all this stuff, and then the delicacy of the adhesive and like these different complications that you would I never thought I'd know as much about adhesive or all these different manufacturing things. But, you know, little changes like with something like that make a huge difference. And like the last thing we would ever do is sound on a product that we weren't proud of. Like we were 2 weeks from launching nasal strips, and we decided to scrap it and redesign them like for another 4 months. Alex Ramosi actually gave us the feedback that I was a little worried about. It just like rubbed on your nose the wrong way. And we were like, we can't release these and not feel like awesome about it. So we kind of went back to the drawing board, made some changes, changed some curves and the shape. And like it probably cost us a ton, but I think in the long run, it will pay for itself 10x.
I've been wearing them. I wore Intake because they sent me some for a while, and it kind of bugged me that I felt like I hated the hard plastic piece. I lost the hard plastic piece, and so the one that fits my nose is gone. And so I like the disposable aspect of it. And they do sit. I'm a sensory guy. Yep. And if something doesn't sit right on my face or my mouth, it pisses me off to no end. And I will say, you guys, I'm glad you took Hormozi's feedback.
Yeah,
because whatever it was, probably bugged the shit out of me too.
Yeah, it was like. And the other piece is obviously we wanted to. I feel like the nasal breathing and just like athletic performance is very slept on right now. No pun intended. But it's like we're trying to create a movement and starting to go. So we wanted something for athletes, like you can't have a piece pop off. Like that's like a league won't allow that. It's also like if that was on a basketball court, you can't, that thing will, if you step on
it's
it.
Like the hard piece of plastic that goes on your nose.
Yeah, or like a football. So we wanted something, you know, Intake it's a great product. We wanted something that functioned like that, but then was disposable, super small, and then was approved by all the leagues just because it was like a safe, you know, material that wasn't going to come off in the field of play.
Yeah. What are you most excited about right now with Dream and what you guys are doing?
I mean, I'm excited for the fall. Like we're just gearing up to like getting the products. Obviously I played football, so I have like this special place in my heart with football. And I actually think it could be the most impactful for that sport because it's such a battle of basically energy reserve, or like, you know, how do you store energy or use the least amount of energy throughout a game? And there's so many bouts of recovery, like it's 6 seconds and recover. So it's like imagine if you're nasal breathing 10 seconds earlier after every play, 100 plays in the game, like how much energy are you going to conserve over the course of 4 quarters of 3.5 hour game? I think it could be pretty substantial. And this, I'm just, I'm kind of, this is more of a conceptual thing and trying to piece, the data and like all the metabolic analysis, but just conceptually it makes sense just based on your heart rate. And so I think it could be really cool. And I think it hasn't been utilized in like those types of sports. Like we had an NBA guy using them, never happened before in the NBA. So it's just cool. It's cool to have a product, honestly, that in practical application is like, you can see it and it's fun. It's fun to see it in the wild, because the sleep stuff has been, the feedback on the sleep stuff's amazing, because I think it changes people's life more than anything.
Definitely.
But it's just fun to see a product out in the wild that's a little easier to market. Mouth tape, it's hard to market something that you have to be asleep in your mouth and you can't talk while you have it on. So it's a little easier to create some ads and stuff.
Why is it worth the hype to you? Because I did a podcast episode maybe 5 or 6 months ago, and I think I titled it something like 4 health fads that are actually worth the hype.
Yeah.
And 2 of them were nasal strips and mouth tape.
Yeah.
And this was before I think I had used a Dream. You hadn't even released the nasal strips yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I love both of those things.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, from where you sit, why do you think it's worth the hype?
Well, I mean, I just think it has to do with how it impacts the body. And like I said, like our body is pretty much just a giant electrical machine, right? Which is our nervous system, controls everything. And the fastest way to impact our nervous system is our breath. Like that is a direct line. There's really nothing else that impacts our nervous system at that speed. And so, well, if it's the most impactful thing to our body, I think it's going to have the biggest global impact. And so, I think I think it's twofold. I think it really is harnessing the power of nasal breathing. I think with the nasal strips, 80% of the population have some form of deviated septum. So majority of people aren't breathing optimally out of their nose. But it just takes a little bit, your nasal cavity constricts to usually pretty small. And so it just takes a little bit of dilation to make a huge difference. And so when you allow yourself to breathe like you're supposed to, and then with the tape, like it almost forces that action, like you get a really beneficial response. Like you put your nervous system in the correct state for 8 hours.
The relaxation that comes from taping and doing a nasal strip is unbelievable, man.
Yeah, and if you look at those stats of how many people are impacted, and also just like the orthodontic philosophy has changed, and airways, like the whole airway movement starting to come along. There's no doubt that nasal breathing is powerful. Breathwork in general has been accepted by every medical professional out there. Now it's just like what tools are going to be effective for what people. And I think, sometimes like the science takes a little while for everybody to adapt to it. But for me, like it literally changed my life. I had mild sleep apnea. I had no idea. I started mouth taping. I was like, I feel so much better. Started making it. So this is 4 years down the road. I'm like, I'm going to do like multiple sleep studies, compare the data. And it turned out I had mild sleep apnea. I had no idea. And when I started taping it completely took it away.
This is what you thought. You said I might have this because I told you when I tape my mouth shut, my Whoop tells me it's like your sleep interruption reduced by 22% last night.
And this is the thing. I've had some conversations with some of the top sleep docs in the world about this. And the setup of some of the studies that they've studied sleep apnea, which is like touchy, and honestly, you should always speak with a doctor, not something to mess around with. But there's
Don't come suing Todd or I defer your CPAP machine.
No. But there's varying degrees. A lot of people use mouth tape with CPAPs, but there's varying degrees of it, and there's varying causes. And so I just think there's more to it. It just hasn't been seen. But the nasal strips are awesome because the combo, nasal strips are a really easy, low, not low risk, but it's not invasive intervention, and people feel an immediate difference. And so I think there's a lot more to learn, but at the end of the day, breathing through your nose is the healthiest way to breathe. And that's something I don't think anybody would debate. And that's the entire concept you're running on. And so it's that, it really isn't the breathing, it's your nervous system. I think that's the name of the game. And really that's the name of the game of everything. It's like when you're lifting weights, really you're doing the same thing. You're turning on and off different portions of your nervous system, manipulating your nervous system to get the stimulus you want. It's no different with sleep.
Yeah, everything comes down to our CNS.
Yeah.
I don't know how to answer this question, so while I'm here and it just came up, I would like you to answer it. Every time I post a picture or a video with my mouth tape shut, like I posted a selfie on TikTok the other day of me I said like health maxing or something goofy, and I had the strip on and mouth tape and blue lights. And So many people ask me the question, I feel like I would suffocate if I tape my mouth shut. What do I do? Obviously, that's not true for everybody.
No, I mean, if you can breathe through your nose, like you're fine. And but that's super common. Like most people feel that way. That's why we have the strips, like the vertical strips. They're stretchy. They're super stretchy. And so you can talk, drink, whatever you want to do with them, because that's an easy way to like get into it. But some people, you put it on and you start talking yourself into not being able to breathe and you start hyperventilate. So that's not like a weird thought. But yeah, like if you're sitting there, right? Like if you're sitting on the couch and you just breathe through your nose, you're fine. And so that's what we usually tell people to do is like sit on the couch, throw the tape on to get used to it, kind of prove to yourself, I can clearly breathe through my nose fine. And that's a good place to start.
Yeah, it's mostly, it's just like a mental thing. It's a mental block.
100%. But I mean, when I first started doing it, like the first couple of times, like you get in your head and you start thinking, you're like, oh, I can't breathe that good. But you can. But you know, anxiety builds up, your breath starts to shorten, and all of a sudden you convince yourself you got to take it off. So I think it's like, you know, you can ease into it with the smaller ones, and then, you know, just do some. The other thing you can do is go for a walk with it on. Like that's a really good proof of concept, because your heart rate might be at 100 or whatever, and you're still able to breathe through your nose. You'd be shocked. Honestly, I don't know if anybody's, you know, you go for, I don't know if you've ever done a run like with just nasal breathing, but it's insane, especially with the nasal strips. Like your body is actually super efficient when you're breathing through your nose. And I think that's a piece also people don't understand is that like the carbon dioxide tolerance, right? Like when you're breathing out of your mouth, you're expelling all your CO2. Which sounds like a good thing, but you know your CO2 is essentially your physiological stress in your body. Like when you start running hard, your CO2 levels go up, and so when you're breathing out of your nose, you have slightly elevated CO2 levels the entire time. Your body becomes acclimated to that, and you're able to be more resilient to that stress. And so when you're breathing out of your mouth the entire night, as soon as a little carbon dioxide bump comes in the day, your body isn't used to responding to that.
So the way we don't breathe through our mouth, the way we do or do not breathe through our mouth during sleep can have an impact on how we handle carbon dioxide in the day.
Yeah, carbon dioxide tolerance is I think like one of the most underrated aspects of fitness.
Can you explain it a little bit?
Like so if you think about like your body, your lungs are almost a fixed size, right? Like when you look at VO2 max, your body's ability to like intake oxygen is the degree in which you can impact it is not massive, but what really makes a big shift, and you can see this when you do like a metabolic test or like analyze gas exchanges, the people who can push it to the same level, or the people who win endurance races, often aren't the ones that can intake the most oxygen like a VO2 max. It's the ones that can tolerate carbon dioxide at the highest levels. And so that's, your body is actually very good at adapting to higher CO2 levels. So you might be taking the same amount of oxygen, higher output, but you're just able to be tolerant. You're able to like withstand that higher level of that rising CO2 from all your output that you basically waste from the amount of energy you're burning.
And we can train that to some degree through our breath.
Yes, yeah, because your breath allows you to be more efficient. Like when you have higher levels of CO2, like when people are running like that, your body actually can absorb more oxygen, because it's kind of a reaction, makes sense. It's like, oh, CO2 is going up, I need to be able to use more of the actual oxygen in the air. And that's like how your body trains itself to do that.
Whoa.
It's pretty wild.
I never knew that.
Yeah, it's a pretty wild concept. That's why I like VO2 max. If you go down the rabbit hole and talk to people that are really in like any time sports or endurance space, like it's at the Olympic level, like the VO2 max is a little bit irrelevant, like the amount of oxygen, whatever. But your lactate thresholds, and
it's a hot take, Todd.
yeah, but I'm not talking about for longevity. I'm talking about straight up like you're trying to run a mile as fast as you can. But like when that CO2 level starts to rise and it surpasses like the amount of oxygen, and those gases, those ratios flip, like those levels, and when manipulating those, that's people who can push it to the next level is like those threshold points, not as much as VO2 max. Like in Europe, they're not as much into like VO2 maxes over here. They're in like lactate thresholds, yeah.
Is there a degree of training, like when I'm doing more into, as I go into marathon prep, for example, I'll start doing speed workouts because I want to get a faster time than my last marathon. Is the goal then simply put to stay in nasal breathing as long as possible?
I would say, zone 2 would be probably the best use case.
Nasal breathing zone 2.
Yeah, and then cumulatively throughout the entire day, right? Like that's a majority of your day. So even if that's like a minimal impact, like the amount of volume you're doing. So it's almost like when you're able to breathe out of your nose, and then when you have to breathe out of your mouth, that's kind of like how it should be.
Okay.
But it's wild if you look at animals, like they're, have you ever seen an animal mouth breathing when they're like sprinting?
No.
It doesn't really happen.
And we're animals.
You look at Usain Bolt, like he's chilling when he's running the 100-meter dash. So there's a level of like smooth is fast, you know?
Slow, smooth is fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love
And
that.
I think that probably applies to breathing as well.
Is there something about sleep when you think about it in the body that fascinates you? Like I have something that always comes to mind for me, and for me there's two things. Number one, there was a study they did that found when they placed two groups, one group in a caloric deficit with adequate sleep, one group sleep deprived.
Yeah, the University of Chicago.
Yeah, and they found please correct me if I'm wrong about the numbers.
You're right.
It was something to the degree of 40% of the weight lost in the caloric deficit in the sleep deprived group was lean tissue.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah.
So that means 0.4 of every pound was muscle mass.
Yeah.
When they were sleep deprived.
Yeah, it's essentially almost like it's like strength training to a degree, being in a caloric deficit. Like, you know how like if you're in a huge caloric deficit, like Ozempic is kind of really bringing the light to this, but you have to crush strength training in order to maintain lean muscle mass.
Right.
Sleep is just as impactful, and I don't think people view it as that.
No.
You know, it really is like a metabolic reset. I think people don't associate metabolism and sleep, and it's a huge impact. I mean, that same lab did a study on insulin resistance, and when people were underslept like 5 hours compared to 8, their body had to produce 25% more insulin to maintain the same blood sugar levels. So just in one day, your insulin resistance goes up by 25%.
Basically, you're pre-diabetic from one night of bad
just
sleep.
from being underslept. And that was like, I think in mostly 30-year-olds. So it's also like pretty healthy population. And so it's just wild. Like, you talked about like the aspects of like weight gain or weight loss, caloric intake. And that's what I mean by like with sleep. It's like, if someone's trying to lose weight, if you're not sleeping well, literally every portion of weight loss is an uphill battle at that point. Food selection, caloric intake, exercise, like it all is very difficult. So it's like if you want to make the process as easy as possible, like start by prioritizing your sleep.
It's all harder. Every single piece. That was good. It's a perfect segue what you said about insulin production, because on top of that, what bad sleep adds, the fuel to the fire it adds, is the increase in ghrelin and decrease in leptin, which are the two hormones that regulate our appetite. Leptin makes us feel full. Ghrelin signals hunger. One night of bad sleep can increase ghrelin by up to, I think, 20%.
Yeah.
And so you've got this, you're going to look shittier if you're in a caloric deficit and sleep deprived because you're going to lose more muscle. And on top of it, your pancreas is working harder. And on top of it, you're going to eat even more.
Yeah.
I think on average.
And worse choices.
And your inhibition is lower.
Yeah, like they did studies with like high saturated fats and like fruits and vegetables, and when you're underslept, you choose the unhealthy foods.
And we've all been
more.
there. Like when you have a hangover
you feel it.
or bad sleep, you're like, I want McDonald's. Or I
Yeah,
want something
well, people
shitty.
convince themselves it's because it's a hangover, and they think that's going to make them feel better. But I just think that you just crave that more, and you just give yourself an excuse to get it.
Yeah.
That's really what happens.
That's exactly right.
So-
Do you have something like that stands out to you that was like a shock value study or fact about sleep? I love just surprising people with fun facts like that.
Oh man, I'm trying to think of like what really. I mean, I think for me, like the craziest one, like Stanford did one on swimming. This is more on the performance side, but they had like they had their teams, sleep pretty much as long as they want, almost 9 hours, and then they had them sleep 5, and measured the reaction time off the blocks. Right. And
like
so,
from a gun to jumping in the water.
Yeah. And so you got to think, this is a sport where like everything relies on reaction time. Their only focus is to get off the blocks as fast as possible. And it was 0.15 seconds slower when they were only sleeping 5 hours, which like that bronze medal or that silver medal, that's 700-second difference from first to second.
So half that.
This is 150 hundredths. So like 0.15 seconds, which is crazy. Think about that's like a 4.3 or 4.3 40-yard dash and a 4.45. And so
difference.
just from being underslept and something that they're like laser focused on. So that was crazy to me. And I think that's probably the most overlooked thing is sleep is like the subconscious function of the brain and your body's ability to react and even to the point of like emotional regulation. Like I always talk about leadership and trust and like, on a team, trust is like the foundation of any team. Like that's the bedrock. But like when you break down like what is trust, right? Like what when you say, oh, I trust someone, I would say when you trust someone, like you have a really good idea of how they're going to react in certain situations, what their mood is going to be like, what their response can be like, what their values are. When you're underslept, like, and it's not debatable, like your ability to communicate goes down, your facial expressions change. You have a harder time reading facial expressions. So like in general, communication breaks down. And I think like to build trust, like that's the cornerstone of trust. And so if you really want to be a good teammate or be a good leader or CEO, you could argue it starts to sleep. And they actually did, this is actually the craziest study. They did a study in Europe, bunch of CEOs. They polled the employees, all the employees. And there was a direct correlation between the hours slept by the CEO and the amount of safety and trust the employees felt. The more sleep the CEO got, the more the entire organization felt safe. Whoa. And I think that comes back to like trust and how you're going to react, your mood, your stability, and just who you are as a person is impacted when you don't sleep well. Like, you know, like the Snickers commercial, like you're not you when you're hungry. It's like you're really not you when you don't sleep. That's really what's happening, because it changes everything in your entire brain.
That is so wild.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. So what are your favorite two facets here that I want? We talked about magnesium on your podcast yesterday, but supplementation and practical things.
Yeah.
Like there's always a question I love to close with guests, and it's the goal of the podcast is what are easily or the goal of the podcast is sharing easily implementable ways to improve your life. And so like supplementation and practice wise, do you have avenues that people would consider or should consider on both sides of those coin?
I mean, I think on the supplementation side, I'm pretty minimal, you know, because like melatonin is thrown around a lot. If you control light, 99% of people can produce plenty of melatonin. And also when people are taking it, the levels in the morning are wild sometimes, like super physiological levels, even with not that high doses. Andy Galpin's doing a lot of stuff on that. But I think if I were to say two things, like supplements or actionable things, I think like heat and light are like the two most powerful things. So like making yourself hot before bed, sauna, hot tub, hot shower, whatever.
How long before bed?
30 minutes, you know? Basically the idea is like heat yourself up, open up your blood vessels, blood flow to your extremities, get into a cold room, and that like increased blood flow along with the cold room and your reaction to the heat, you cool down fast, because you got to drop about like 1 degree to 1.5 degrees. Your core temperature drops before you fall asleep. And so the faster you can get that to happen, the faster you usually fall asleep. I think that's super powerful. It's also relaxing. And then I think the other thing is light. I think I'm not just saying like dark room. It's like mimic the sun, like create a continuum from your living space to your bedroom, like anywhere you're going in your house. Like I love candles. Like candles are great at night. Like it's really natural. I think it's calming. But you know, when the sun goes down, the light should go down. And I think people, you know, they separate their bedroom and it's like, oh, my bed, I black out shades, whatever, all this stuff. But then TV's on, lights are on, all LED lights all over the place in the living space. And you could argue that the living space is as impactful as the bedroom when it comes to light, because melatonin starts to rise pretty early in the evening. It's a really gradual taper. You know, it's 5, 6 o'clock. And so you need to be starting to manipulate that light at those times to give yourself time for it to rise. And I think that's why like so many people take it, because that's not happening. You know, you're not giving your body its chance to kind of wind up or wind down, I guess.
So when the sun starts to set or we get closer to sunset, it's probably a good idea to maybe what you're referring to is drop the overhead lights, have some ambient lighting and candle light from 6, 7 p.m. onward.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I would say more like not like dead of summer because the sun stays up, but you know, like you want it to be a gradual taper, and you want it to be both in your living space and your bed space. You can use glasses, like any, you know, there's a lot of tools to do that, but I don't think people think of their living space as part of the bedroom in that sense. And I think like it's kind of like throwing those orange glasses on. You're immediately start to feel tired. It would be no different if you turn the lights down low. And I also just like I take magnesium threonate. I like supplements, but I don't like the idea of like the reliance on it. I like the idea of like trying to do behavior-based stuff that you can replicate wherever you go. Like you always have a hot shower somewhere. You'll always be able to control the light, whether it's like shades or mask, whatever. Like I love when you can, I think because I think of it a lot of times from athletes of like hotel rooms, travel games, all this stuff, but Like, you don't want to make it so rigid. Like, I think adaptability is one of the most powerful tools in both, on business, the personal side, the body. Anytime our body gets rigid, you get hurt. I think it's no different with routine. Like, I think routine's good, but if you get thrown off a little bit or thrown in a different environment, you don't want everything to fall apart.
Yeah.
And so I intentionally am not like super rigid, because I want to live life. Like last night, we went and had a couple of drinks and had dinner and slept bad, but like, that's okay, because life's about connecting with people. Life's not about sleeping.
Yeah.
And so like, you need a little bit of adaptability, a little bit of fluidity in your routine.
I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of people would see you, this guy that's running a company, he's married, he's got a life, he's got employees, he's got to be super dialed all the time. But you're right. We went out, we had some cocktails, we had a ribeye, we had dessert. That place is fantastic. Cane Prime in Nashville.
Cane Prime, shout out Cane Prime.
But I had a concept come to my head the other day that I talked about in a video, which was a lot of people get into health and wellness to break free of an old pattern and then become slaves to the new pattern.
Yeah.
And the whole point
I see that all the time.
Doing all of this stuff is to be more free.
100%.
And most people don't do it.
And I also think people the longevity has got so much attention, but like, don't get it twisted. Community and relationships are the number one predictor of longevity. So like, understanding, okay, that's the main priority, especially if it's longevity is your goal. When those other things start impacting your relationships, how you spend your time, your stresses, like if you're stressed about that routine and this, like these certain things, like you said, you're focused on, like, that's not really net positive. It's probably actually taking away from your quality of life. So I think people's priorities get all jumbled up, but at the end of the day, like, I think we're here to connect with people, hang out with people, be around people we love, and your health and wellness goals shouldn't interfere with that. They should only add to it.
Yeah. Well, Todd, I think you're a shining example of balance, man. And
appreciate it.
I'm grateful to have met you. I'm grateful that you asked me to come out here.
Yeah, man.
We do have a little tradition that I do on the show that everybody drops in the comments, but I do something called a step check.
Okay.
All right. We check the time. We check our steps, because obviously you got to hit the 10K.
I'm not good, dude. I'm not good.
It's 4:51 p.m. We're on Central Time?
Central Time.
Yeah, in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm at 6,328 steps.
I'm at basically 6,000 flat, 5,986.
We have got to go for a walk.
I'll definitely go for a walk after dinner. That's no doubt.
Beautiful. Well, thank you for being here, man.
Thanks for coming. It's been awesome to hang.
Yeah, it's been a blast. Let me know what you guys thought of the episode in the comments. If you're listening on Spotify, be sure to follow the show and share it with somebody. It really does help us get the message out to more people. And Todd, where can they find you?
My Instagram, just Todd Anderson, and then dreamrecovery.io is our site.
Heck yeah. Go check it out. Appreciate you, brother.
Appreciate you.
Cool.
That's great.